Hey you, I'm Sarah Turner. I'm a freelance medical copywriter, and today I want to talk to you about the top 10 books I think every copywriter should read. If you Google top copywriting books, you'll start to see a lot of the same books repeated over and over again. And I went through and read a lot of them, and I, over time, have come to find that while some of them are amazing, some of them are a little outdated, some of them are really repetitive, and it kind of gets to the point where you start to see some of the same patterns. Now, there's nothing wrong with that because sometimes it takes a certain person's voice or a certain author's tone for it to really click with you. So they're all great recommendations for the most part in what I've seen in my searches, but I wanted to just give you my top 10. Because this is something I get asked a lot, and I think that it really starts with mindset work. So the first 4 books I'm going to talk to you about actually have a lot more to do with mindset than copywriting itself. Because for anybody to be a freelance writer, mindset is a must-have. You must work on your mindset because being your own boss is tough. You're not going to have a boss who's patting you on the back or cutting you down, and you might have, some concerns about am I doing this right? Where do I start? How do I know if this is good? And sometimes your clients aren't always going to give you great feedback. So mindset work is something that I work on with my students. They tell me on a regular basis it's the most important part of what we do together. And so I want to just share with you real quick some of my favorite books. So my first one by far is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And I absolutely love this book and think everyone should read it. In fact, this year at the beach, my entire family was reading it. We meant to take a picture of everybody lined up on the beach with them all having their copy of The Slight Edge. But I love The Slight Edge so much because it gives a really simple to follow guideline of how to make little daily changes and routines that lead to massive success and massive happiness. It's really easy to follow. When you read it, you'll start to think, yeah, he's totally right. It's not anything earth-shattering, but all in the same time, it is earth-shattering. And also, it's extremely actionable, which is something that I really love in books. I hate when books give you a basic concept of what to do, and then they don't tell you exactly how to do it, but that does not happen with The Slight Edge. So The Slight Edge is about mastering your daily life and how that will result in compound actions and results, and it's really true. It works so much. And so I wanted to read for you a few of my favorite quotes, and one of them is from page 201. When you start at the beginning of anything, you're at your highest level of anxiety. As you learn through studying and doing, information and experience, book smarts and street smarts, you gradually lower your level of anxiety by raising your level of mastery. As you continue climbing the ladder of knowledge, you keep your eyes on worthy mentors, always using learning through modeling as your learning gyroscope to help keep you on track. And this is one of the things I love about The Slight Edge is he kind of always talks about course correcting. Everything you're doing in life is sort of an experiment when you're a freelancer. And when you're a copywriter, that's no different. You're constantly testing and researching and trying new things. And honestly, that's why I love it so much. And that's one of the reasons my students love it so much. I always say you're a forever student. Nothing is a failure unless you don't learn from it. Everything is a learning opportunity when you work for yourself. And I love this, example that he gives in The Slight Edge too. So I'm going to go ahead, and this will be the only book I quote twice from, but it's just because I love it so much. But he talks about how on its way to landing astronauts safely on the moon, Apollo rockets and other rockets are only on course 2 to 3% of the time, which means that for at least 97% of the time it takes to get from Earth to the moon, these rockets are off course. So let's say you were able to match the Apollo's rocket degree of accuracy in the pursuit of your own goals. That would mean you'd be perfectly on target and on course no more than 10 days of any given year. So the next time you're giving yourself a hard time because you feel like you've gotten off track, just think about the Apollo program and give yourself a break. This is one of the best things about this book, is that it really gives you the chance to be a little easier on yourself, which again, when you're your own boss, that can be really hard to do. Sometimes we end up trading having no boss for our own boss, and we can be kind of a dictator, and it's not the best way to do things, because you're in this for the long haul, so you want to have a great relationship with your business and yourself. So I cannot say enough about this book. I really believe it's truly changed my life. Okay, so the next one is also a mindset book. It is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And this has been another life-changing book for me and my students, because it goes into basically how our minds have trouble differentiating between what is real and what is a thought. So it kind of points out the importance of all the thoughts we have running through our minds during the day, and what kind of impact it can have for your happiness and your success. And it's really an eye-opening book. And then again, one of the reasons I love it is at the end of the book, he gives you some serious hardcore tools that you can put in place to rewire your mind to be a more successful and happy person. And I think it's just such a fantastic book that every single person should read. Now, the next one I don't have with me physically, because I tend to give books away to people when I'm telling them about it, and I get really excited, so I give my books away a lot. In fact, I have multiple copies of The Slight Edge in my apartment at all times because I give it away regularly. So the next one is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And this was a really good book. It's a really inspiring book for anyone who is creative or, working on projects on their own time, and again, doesn't have a boss, but again, anyone who's creative, it's really great for. It's really inspiring, but it also challenges a lot of beliefs we have about creativity, and that's why I love it. One of the things she talks about a lot is we tend to think that, writing only comes to us when we're inspired, and when that doesn't happen, we have writer's block. I think writer's block is doing us a huge disservice, because it's giving power to something that's not really real. And so she kind of reframes that like, you know what? If you're a writer, just like any craft, anyone who plays the piano or an instrument or creates art, it is about practice. It's about putting in the hours. It's about showing up. It's about doing the work when you aren't as inspired. And when you continue to do that, that is where you actually become a better writer. It's not the days where the words are flowing freely on the page that I become a better writer. It's the days where it's a struggle, where I'm like, this is really hard, but I push through it. Those are the days where I become truly a better writer, are the challenging ones. So it's a really inspiring book, and it's really good at kind of challenging some of the beliefs we have about creativity and the writing process in general. So I really recommend that book. The other book is another book I gave away, so I don't have it with me, and that's The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. This is a great book. Again, I think everyone should read it. It challenges, again, a lot of our beliefs about how work should feel, about how, our days should look, and just it has a lot of actionable advice in it as well. One of my favorite things that came out of that book for me was batching and the importance of time. So Tim Ferriss is constantly talking about how, time is our most precious resource. You can always make more money, but you can never make more time. And so with that in mind, it is the most important thing to protect. And through reading 4-Hour Workweek and doing things like batching, which would include making all of your similar tasks done, doing them all at the same time, like checking emails, things like that, and making sure that you aren't giving your best hours of your day to, tedious tasks. Like, I don't answer my emails first thing anymore, because that's some of my most productive time. So now I save them for about 11 o'clock in the in the morning, or even in the afternoon to respond to, because I don't want to give my most productive time to tedious tasks. Instead, I save my most productive time for the things that are the hardest, or something that I really want to work on or improve in my business. So 4-Hour Workweek is a great book. It has a lot of new concepts for entrepreneurs, freelancers in there, and totally worth checking out. The next one, again, actually this one I don't have with me because I listened to it on an audiobook because somebody recommended that it would be better on an audiobook, which it totally is. And that is Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. So Pitch Anything is actually not a copywriting book, but it's about pitching things and sharing things with people in a way that is enticing and that they would actually want to listen to you. Like, how do you tell somebody what you do or what you have to offer so that they really want to hear what you have to say and to work with you. And it's a really great audiobook because it is about the art of communication. So, and he reads it. So it's really great to hear his inflections and his tones. So I recommend that as an audiobook. Okay, so then the next 5 books are like true copywriting writing books. And my first and favorite copywriting book is Breakthrough Copywriting by David Garfinkel. And this is because it's quick and dirty and real straightforward and to the point. And I also love that he doesn't waste any words. Nothing is rambling or, bragging about himself. And so it's just really straightforward and to the point. And I think one of the best books people can start out reading because it's very dense. And I really recommend you take your time with this book because, look, it's a really small book, but it is packed with value. So as you're going through, really, I only recommend reading like a little chapter or a section at a time and taking a moment to digest it. I actually created a lesson and a workbook in my course based on the emotional trigger patterns in this book because it's such a good practice to actually notice emotional trigger patterns so that you can take people kind of on a journey through basically tapping into their emotions and psychologically based techniques to get them to pay attention to you. So yeah, this is a really good book and very, very detailed. So I really, really recommend this. And I also think it's a great one to kind of test the waters and see if you think copywriting's for you. Okay. Next one is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. And this is a classic copywriting book. It's really great. It has some really interesting stories. Like one of my favorite ones is at the beginning where a jewelry store owner accidentally raises the price of the jewelry instead of making it 50% off for a sale. And they actually increase their sales by increasing the price of the jewelry because of the perceived value. So people suddenly are like, oh, this is more expensive. It must be higher quality. It must be better value. And so little things like that kind of point out to you why it's important to kind of question why you would do something. Sometimes people don't want the cheaper thing. Sometimes people want the more high quality offering and things like that. This is also a book that's got a lot of, old school techniques, old school mindsets in copywriting. And while there's nothing wrong with that, and it's very based in direct response, which means getting people to act immediately. Something that I always remind people is when you're reading something like this, especially the old school guys in copywriting, it's important to keep in mind that today's consumer is a little bit smarter and more savvy when it comes to interpreting marketing messages than than before. So with that in mind, all of these older books, when you're reading them, keep in mind this is one of those things where it's like learning the rules to potentially break them. You don't have to agree. It might give you some slimy feelings. But at the end of the day, if you don't know the techniques, and aren't able to incorporate them in your writing when it is appropriate and good for your client, or especially for the person who is a potential customer or buyer. So that is when you can use your own moral compass to make sure that you're using those techniques with ethics. So I always remind people sometimes it's about learning the rules so that you can break them. This is a really fantastic book and I really recommend it for everyone. Next up, again, as another classic, My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins. And this is a more of a storytelling book. It's really great. Again, it's old school. It can be a little tough to get through, but it's really interesting. And if you go into it with an open mind, you're gonna learn a lot reading this book. And also the other thing is I think sometimes when you read old school copywriters, you can tend to think that they are over the top manipulative or their heart's not in the right place. And like I said, I really like to think that I bring the human back into marketing and copywriting, and again encourage people to only work for brands and companies that are in alignment with their values to kind of get around feeling slimy doing copywriting. Because if you have something that's valuable to your potential customer, it's worth telling them about. The good guys need good marketers. So But yeah, if you pay close attention, you'll realize like most of their core foundational beliefs are actually based in in good. And so this is a little quote from 145. You cannot go into a well-occupied field on the simple appeal of buy my brand. That is a selfish appeal repugnant to all. One must offer exceptional service to induce people to change from favorite brands to yours. And again, that is something to keep in mind. Like, you'll read these, sometimes it'll feel dated, but they still believe that don't sell crap to people if you're going to be in advertising or marketing, because that's what gives marketing a bad rap. So it's still there. It's still good quality. I mean, it's actually really great. I'm just trying to point out to anyone coming into marketing, which is how I felt when I first came in, that, sometimes you'll read things and you'll be like, ugh. But the thing that actually is really interesting about all these books is once you start familiarizing yourself with copywriting techniques, you won't be able to unsee them. You'll see them everywhere. You'll see the news using them. You'll see them in political speeches. I mean, everywhere you look, you will start to see copywriting techniques. And also a really good thing about that quote that I liked, and I think would be a great kind of stopping point for most brands, is a lot of advertising these days have kind of just become like, this is our brand, cool, look, especially big companies like Coca-Cola or like Samsung. Sometimes I look at their ads and I'm like, what is the point of this? It's not really anything other than brand awareness. And I think it's better value if you go a little bit further than just brand awareness, which is again why I recommend copywriting over content writing for people on the edge. Okay, number 9, the Adweek Copywriting Handbook by Joseph Sugarman. So Joseph Sugarman is kind of one of the classic copywriters of all time. This is again one of those must reads, I think, for every copywriter. And then I really enjoy the psychological triggers section of this book, where he talks about different feelings and desires of people and how to understand them and work with them when you're writing your copy. This is a really great book, and he starts out with honesty and integrity and credibility. So again, this is all based in good values. If you read it with an open mind, you can definitely pick up on that it's a little older, but anyway, it's all good. And then last but not least, I really like Everybody Writes by Anne Hanley. And this is much more about just writing itself as a process as opposed to copywriting specifically, but it's about being interesting, and also it's really enjoyable to read, especially because some of those other ones I just recommend are a little dense. So switch these up. Make sure you intermix your dense pieces or dense books with some more lighter-hearted books. And really dig in. It's really interesting. Copywriting is a lot of fun. You learn a lot about psychology in the process, and ultimately you learn how to help people. So thanks for tuning in, and if you have any recommendations of movies you would like to see, videos you would like me to make, go ahead and drop them in the comments and hit that thumbs up button, because that tells me that you enjoyed this video, you'd like to see more like this. And of course, remember to subscribe, because I'm going to be releasing videos weekly. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great day.